Welcome back to the Down-to-Earth Woodworking Shop. We're in the process of building a combination outfeed table and assembly table for the new SawStop saw. And we're trying to use the SawStop for everything in order to get a good feel for the saw, check it out, and find out how good this saw really is. So far in part one of this series, we went through the design criteria and drew up a basic concept. Then in parts 2A and 2B, we built a torsion box top for the table. Dead flat and heavy, by the way. Now in this part 3, we're going to start building the base assembly. Of course, there's still some work to do on the top, but that work is going to require a switchover to a dado set in the SawStop. So I want to make as many cuts as I can with this setup and minimize the number of times I have to make that switchover. The base assembly is going to consist of 4 pedestal legs. 2 of the pedestals are 4 by 4 inches and the other 2 are 4 by 8 inches. The pedestals are going to be made with 3/4 inch plywood and mitered corners. To cut the 45-degree miters and to make sure all the pedestal pieces are exactly the same size, I started by cutting some plywood stock down to length and then to the approximate width plus a couple of inches. I then cut one edge of all the pieces. Then I set the fence for the final size, and now I'm making the second 45-degree angle cut. Right. Now all the 4-inch pieces have been cut. Of course, we still have to cut some dados in these, but basically this is what the pedestal legs will look like. They'll be glued up to form square 4 by 4 legs. Now I need to cut the 8-inch pieces for the 2 leg pedestals at the saw side of the base assembly. First, I'm going to set up a cut that'll create one 45-degree edge along each of the 4 work pieces. Then I'll reposition the fence to give me an exact 8-inch piece and make the second cut. So let's make these first cuts. All right, getting the dimensions off of this edge to this edge at exactly 8 inches with a tilted blade can be tricky, but a couple of different things that you can do. The board is 3/4 of an inch thick, and it's a 45-degree angle. So if you set your fence at 7 1/4, in theory, it's going to be right on your 8-inch mark. But to make sure, what I do is I get a long piece of wood and I put it at my 8-inch tick mark on the piece of wood and look to see how that piece of extended wood lines up with the teeth of the blade. And that looks to be lined up, so what we'll do now is we'll make a little nick cut right there and see where we are. If we're in good shape, we're ready to go. If not, we can adjust the fence a little bit from there. And that's dead on 8 inches. So we're ready to cut. Using some blue painter's tape, I've mocked up one of the 4 by 4 leg assemblies and one of the 4 by 8 leg assemblies. What we're going to do is cut dados, or more accurately rabbets, in the ends of these pedestal pieces. In both the top and bottom, I want to install 2 thicknesses of 3/4 inch plywood. On the bottom, the double thickness will provide support for the casters. On the top, the double thickness plywood will provide support for the torsion box leveling system. So with these pedestal assemblies mocked up, I can get an accurate dimension for those pieces. I'm going to cut perfect squares, or rectangles as the case may be, the size of these openings plus enough to set the pieces into 1/4 inch dados. In other words, I'll add a 1/2 inch to each dimension. After I cut out those little pieces, it'll be time to start making some dados. At that point, I'll have to switch the SawStop over, install the special dado cartridge, the dado set itself, and the dado throat plate insert. So now I need to go get the instruction manual and figure out how to do this. Switching to the dado set, at least the first time around for me, took about 2 hours. Of course, the first time around you have to cut the zero clearance throat plate. And frankly, I just had to figure out how to do everything. I'm sure it'll be much quicker next time. After installing the dado set, I put in a combination of chippers that Forest Manufacturing lists on their dado set instruction sheet as equaling 23/32 of an inch. But after making a test cut, the fit was just way too tight. I used a digital caliper to measure the plywood and then to measure the test groove I had cut. I subtracted the smaller number from the larger and found that I needed an additional 0.0355 inches of spacers. So I added 2 0.015 inch spacers to the stack, or a total of 0.03 inches. And on my second test cut, the fit was perfect. Now the first dados I'm going to cut are actually rabbets in the ends of the pedestal pieces. So next I need to make a wooden sacrificial fence to attach to the SawStop fence. Okay, I've set up a sacrificial fence so I could get an absolutely flush to the end rabbet in the ends of the pedestal pieces. I've also screwed a backer board to the SawStop miter gauge to help keep the workpiece aligned and also to help reduce tear out in the end of the workpiece. I've made some test cuts and I've gotten the depth adjusted to exactly 1/4 inch. Now I'm ready to make the first cuts in the ends of the pedestal pieces, so let's get going. That looks pretty good. And now for the wider leg pieces. Sweet. Okay, so now I need to widen the rabbet in the ends of the pieces because this is going to have 2 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood glued into those rabbets, top and bottom of the pedestals. Now I'm not going to be able to get it all in one cut, and I don't want to go too far that I leave a ridge. So what I'm doing is I'm making a very small mark here, lined up with the first cut,
And then I'm going to go out with the fence and just overlap that cut a little bit and cut a little bit more off. Then we'll come back and we'll make the final adjustment and we'll cut them to exact depth. Now you can see we're still not quite at the right depth, but we're getting there. With most of the rabbet cut, I've now taken 2 of my end filler pieces and use those to position the fence to get the rest of the cut. So I've got a test piece here and we'll see how close we are. Well, it needs to be just a smidge deeper. And that should be just about right. Let's try that now. Oh, that's perfect. I can't feel any difference. So we're ready to cut.
Glue up of the pedestal leg assemblies is pretty straightforward, aided considerably by the 2 square pieces set into rabbets at the top and bottom of the legs. Normally with mitered corners, you might choose to lay out some tape, adhesive side up, put the work pieces down on top of the tape, positioned with their edges touching, and then just fold up the assembly. Add a little tape to hold it all together until the glue sets and you're good to go. But with the square end sets in both ends, I found that that wasn't necessary. In fact, those square pieces made the whole assembly sort of self-squaring. But I clamped it inside these corner braces just to be sure. With the pedestal legs made, we're almost half done with this SawStop Outfeed table project. And the next steps are going to be a lot of fun. We need to cut stopped dados in the leg assemblies for the connecting panels that will go around 3 sides of the base assembly. And we need to build the face frame assembly for the front. And very importantly, we need to fabricate the trim and reinforcement pieces for this overhanging edge on the torsion box top. The next video will be coming very soon, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Thank you so much for watching this one.